Look, I've had a very fortunate life and a very good time, and when I retired I thought, this is the opportunity. I'm going to go sailing and travelling, which we did, and I think I'm like everybody else in Newcastle. People are dissatisfied, really dissatisfied with the performance of the elected council. And I guess my thought there was that you can't really complain about it if you're not prepared to do something about it, so I'm standing up. Oh, there's lots of issues. Well, I see the job in three parts, actually. There's the operational part of the job where we make or help the council do their job and utilise the resources they have as best as possible. There's the governance part, which I think is the most important, and that's getting the elected council to work properly. And they're not doing it. They're a disharmonious, dysfunctional group that cannot make decisions and cannot even get along with each other. And my experience in business is if the top of the company works like that, the company has no hope of producing a good result. And I think the longer term part of what I see as the job is the strategic part. And the strategic part involves what next for Newcastle, what happens with the rail line, what happens with development, what about shopping in town and so on. But that's probably a big issue in terms of this election. But there are also big issues that are important to individuals, things like parking. And I know that's been brought up by almost everybody. But parking in the city is very difficult, and I think the way in which the council's going about it is not getting the best result from that. There seems to be a westward push of parking meters from the CBD towards Hamilton and Adamstown, and there doesn't seem to be much thought about what that's doing to the retailers, particularly in Newcastle. What I'd do, I'd halt what's happening now, where it is. I'd have a review of what the plan is, and in consultation with the retailers try and develop a much more friendly plan about parking. Now I know that there are lots of suggestions about parking. I know the new rugby park, number 2 sports ground, has 300 places which can be used during the day. And I know that the parking meters we have the facility to accommodate periods of free parking, whether it be from half an hour, 2 hours or whatever, which would encourage people back into town. And I know that there's also movement now at the moment about what happens with the existing parking stations in the city, two having, I understand, been sold this week. A couple of years ago I put my hand up for pre-selection for the state seat of Newcastle. Spectacularly unsuccessful, but it was a good learning experience. And when I thought about this long and hard, I thought this is an opportunity not to work as an individual, which a state member does, but work as part of a team, which I'm used to. And that's what I reckon I could bring to the job. My vast experience in working in teams dealing with things that are strategically important. Oh, absolutely. I don't think really there's any place for politics at local government level. I don't think there is a place for single issue groups either. I think the most cohesive group of people would be a group of people who understood what the issues were and were prepared to come to consensus decisions on all of those things. And just making decisions is a really hard thing to do, and we saw that with the fig debacle last year. That's a really good example, that both sides had opinions on that. And I can't for the life of me think why it finished up with police intervening to keep them apart. It's a disgraceful end to what should have been a process where people could come together and realise that sometimes not everybody's right and sometimes not everybody's wrong, but sometimes we really need to make a decision, or we could make a decision not to make a decision, and none of that happened. Well, our view is that if something's not working and you put that something back in for another 4 years and expect things to be different, then that's not very sensible. If the elected council can't work together, can't be cohesive, can't be respectful of one another, can't see the bigger picture, and they promise. I remember before the last council elections 4 years ago, they all promised, oh yeah, we'll get along and we'll work together and all that sort of stuff. And it fell apart within weeks. And are we going to give them another go? I think not. And in the new council, I think new people who are being elected for the first time, not had that experience before, will be much more inclined to look at the bigger picture and get the job done rather than promote a lot of either idiosyncratic ideas, personal agendas or political agendas. I think the people who, my experience in business is the people who know where the money goes are the managers, they're the hands-on managers who actually manage the money. So you would take advice from them, or you would give some sort of leading process where you identified where the money was going and how much you could save by doing various things. And you don't have to be brutal, you don't have to be catastrophic, but understanding where the money has gone is the most important part about how to save it. And that's a process I'm very used to. I think there are issues there, but there are issues all over Newcastle. Now we're not fielding candidates in wards 3 and 4, but I'm sure if we had new candidates elected in wards 3 and 4, we would work very well with them. I know that there are issues in Ward 3 with parts of East Mayfield not even having footpaths. After all this time, they still don't have a footpath. I know there's an issue with the future of the Olympic swimming pool at Mayfield, and I know that I'd really like to look at Wall's End in terms of the aftermath of the floods last year and see if all that can be done has been done. And I also understand, because I know people who live in the newer suburbs further west, the lack of some recreational facilities for the kids, and I'd like to look at that also. Undoubtedly, the biggest hurdle I've got to face is that I'm not well known because I'm not a politician and I haven't got a big public profile. I'm actually part of a number of groups in Newcastle, remember the Carlton Rugby Club, the Yacht Club, and other clubs. I've done some charity work for an organisation called Newcastle Sailors with Disability, and I'm on the board of that organisation and the donations chairman. So, but that's not enough. I haven't had that exposure over the last 4 years. So that's my biggest hurdle, I think. I just say that to people in Newcastle, think about what's happened over the last 4 years and think about what's the likelihood of that being repeated. What do we have to do to repeat that performance over the last 4 years? And that's put everybody back in. If we want the outcome to be different, have a look at some people who are proposing new ideas and have experience in doing so outside of council. And I'd encourage them to think about a new start, a clean sweep.